Well, hey, community. How are you guys doing today? You guys doing well? I hope. Beautiful time in South Florida. I want to welcome everyone in the room. Good crowd. I want to welcome those of you that are watching online also. So glad that you've joined us today. Now, it's not in my notes, but based upon what a few people said to me as they were coming in today, like, why aren't you wearing your Tua jersey? And I do have one, by the way. And I go, so I have to give a big shout out because the Dolphins, actually, as I've made this prediction, for years that they were going to win the Super Bowl. We won the Super Bowl last Sunday. We did. Scott, the Super Bowl's in February. No. Our Super Bowl is against the Bills, and we beat the Bills last Sunday. We haven't beat the Bills in, I think it's 100 years or so. I mean, they own us. And so it was such a good game. That has nothing to do with the message, but I had to say it. No, I'm talking about contentment today and how your contentment should not be dependent upon your circumstances. But that circumstance, man, my contentment level, it went up. So anyway, there's a guy named Carlos. He's married to a really wealthy woman. And she took every opportunity she had to remind Carlos that all the money that they had in their family was, well, hers. When they moved into this 15,000 square foot mansion, she just walked from room to room and she would say, Carlos, if it wasn't for my money, we wouldn't be here. I know. And then when they delivered the state-of-the-art 300-inch 8K TV, really exists, most expensive TV in the world. When they delivered that to the house, she said, Carlos, if it wasn't for my money, that TV wouldn't be here. Took them out to the circular drive, and there's 2 high-end sports cars. If it wasn't for my money, they wouldn't be there. Carlos could take it no longer. He said, look, if it wasn't for your money, I wouldn't be here. That's an old joke that I've told for years. It's one of my dad's favorites, so I tell it in honor of him. People do crazy things for money, don't they? I mean, they really do. Now that's a joke. This is a true story. This actually happened. I'm not making this up. Some of you, you saw it in the news this week. 4 guys were arrested this past week for trying to cash a check. Not any check. It was a U.S. Treasury Department check. Not in a U.S. Treasury Department check. It was a check for almost $28 million, and they were arrested. And where did this happen in the country? Right here in Broward County. Of course, yeah, Broward. Anyway, so it just was here. And so, I mean, how do you cash a $28 million check? You go up to the teller, I don't have an account here, but I'd like to cash this, please. Sir, that's a lot of money. I know. So I don't have $28 million in my drawer. Kayla, do you have $28 million in your drawer? Yeah, she does, actually. We'll get it for you in just a minute. I mean, what do you think? How's this going to play out? I mean, I wonder what the 4 guys were talking about. So we got this $28 million check. What are the odds that we're gonna be able to, deposit this without getting caught? One of the guys says, well, probably like 1 in 28 million, I don't know. And one of the other guys said, so you're saying we've got a chance? That's a line from Dumb and Dumber, which their act was very much dumb and dumber to do this. I mean, they were arrested. People do crazy things for money. Why? Because they think money will buy happiness. And I want to talk to you about contentment today. If your contentment is based only on your circumstances, then you're going to experience a lot of discontentment in your life. You just will. Today we're going to look at some words by the Apostle Paul. Now, he's at the end of his life. He's in prison. He's awaiting possible execution. He's broke. He's alone. It's about as bad as it can get. And yet Paul writes these words in Philippians chapter 4, verse 4. He says, rejoice in the Lord always. I'll say it again, rejoice. So say that with me. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Friends, with all the advantages and privileges that we have, we may be the most discontented people who've ever lived on planet Earth. We're not a very contented people. So I want to ask you, are you content? Would you say, yeah, I'm content, or something I struggle with? Well, let's take a little personal contentment diagnostic. I want to ask you some questions. Are you content with your job? Barna did some surveying recently and found that over 50% of Americans are quiet quitting. That's the term now, quiet quitting. Doing the bare minimum in their job just to get by. No energy, no passion, no desire to really help out the organization. Just enough to get by, just enough so that they can live for the weekend or live for their retirement. Quiet quitting, over 50% of us. Are you content with your marriage? Would you say, yeah, I'm content 95% of the time, or I'm content 80% of the time, or I'm more happy than unhappy? Or would you say, Scott, the truth is I'm pretty dissatisfied with my marriage right now? Or would you say I'm single and I'm really unhappy with my marital status? Are you content with your body? Can you look at yourself in the mirror and say, God, I thank you for the way that I look? Yeah, me neither. Not close. Not close on that. How do you feel when you get on the scale? Sorry about asking that one. Maybe you've prayed the prayer, Lord, if you can't make me thin, please help all my friends to look fat. Amen. 20 years ago, this is true, you're never gonna see these photos. 20 years ago, I went through a season for a few years when I weighed a lot more than I weigh right now. And that was back in the day when I had two, not one, but two personal trainers, Ben and Jerry, okay? They were part of the problem. No, they were the problem. They were the problem. They just really were. And so one of my sons, 20 years ago, they bought me this talking scale. So I'd get on the scale and I'd get on it and the scale would say, oh, one person at a time, please. I only used it twice. It's in the bottom of the canal behind our house. So All right, so anyway, the Apostle Paul, he makes this incredible statement. It's remarkable, understanding the context of his situation. He said, I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned the secret. We love secrets, don't we? The life hack. The secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. Paul knows the secret, and he's gonna tell us what it is. And I'll tell you at the end of the message. So pay attention, lean in. When Paul makes this claim, again, aging, prisoner, financially destitute, alone, Paul says, again in verse 12, I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. And the word learned there, it's great to know it means learned by experience. It wasn't said, I was born with a contented spirit. Paul didn't say that at all. He said, look, lived a lot of life. I have learned the secret of contentment. And the truth about me is I struggled with contentment a lot when I was in high school, when I was in my 20s, and when I was in my 30s, and even into my 40s. But I've learned, and I am more contented now than I was 10 years ago, way more now than 20 years ago. And so here's the thing, if you struggle with contentment, you can learn how to be a more contented person. And it's my prayer for you that you can walk out of here today with kind of a paradigm shift in your mind, because it's not about your circumstances. It's not like, okay, if I can get all my circumstances better. No. Circumstances are gonna stay the same. It's the way you view your circumstances and the way you approach your circumstances from your perspective. And if you can change that, then you can leave here with less discontentment and more contentment, and that's my goal. And that's God's hope for you. Jesus said, I came that you might have life in all of its fullness. That's what he wants for you. That's what he wants for me. So we learn. And I think there are a few lessons that we need to learn more than this one, because we struggle with contentment in our day and our age. So what I want to do today is I want to share initially 4 primary enemies of contentment. So we can see the things that are kind of like chipping away at our contentment, because they're real and they do real damage to our contentment. The first one is unrealistic expectations. Okay, let's everybody say this out loud, good and strong together. Unrealistic expectations. So if you just drop all your expectations and just settle and chill, then okay, no, that's not the point at all. So don't hear that. That's not what this is about. But sometimes we have some expectations that are just incredibly unrealistic, and there's no way we're gonna experience that, and it just sets us up for disappointment, disillusionment, and discontentment. C.S. Lewis famously said, disillusionment is the child of illusions. And if you have an illusion, if you have an unrealistic expectation, I mean, it's not about goal setting and it's not about striving, but if you have this real illusion about something, it just sets us up to be disillusioned. And I see that happen a lot. So we evaluate our expectations. Are they realistic? I mean, goal setting, or are they just unrealistic? Maybe you got married with high hopes, but you discovered that your Mr. Right has a first name, always. Mr. Always Right. Or your wife just doesn't seem as sweet and kind and encouraging and supportive as she was before you got married. You went to work with high hopes. You thought it was gonna be a great organization. You heard about the culture by the person that was hiring you, but the person that was hiring you was the problem, and now you work for a jerk. And you're quiet quitting, looking for your way out. You became a follower of Jesus, and well, you wanted the hope of heaven, and you wanted the forgiveness of your sins, but you also thought that life was gonna be trouble-free. And it's not been that way. You thought that you wouldn't have any problems, you thought that you wouldn't have any difficulties, and you feel that God has let you down, but he hasn't, because you didn't understand what it meant to follow Jesus. That's why Jesus told his followers then, and he's telling us now, we need to be realistic about life. Jesus said, in this world, you will have trouble. Life is just hard. That's just the truth. And if you expect trouble, then you're not disillusioned when it happens. And friends, that's the power of realistic thinking. And you just learn to appreciate the trouble-free days. And sometimes, like, how was your week? Yeah, it's pretty uneventful. That's awesome. An uneventful week is a good week for me. Something didn't break, something, I didn't get hurt, something, it's like, it's uneventful and life is good. And you appreciate the trouble-free days as a blessing. And then you deal with the difficult days as just normal, because life is hard. In this world, we will have trouble. But Jesus goes on, he says, in this world, you will have trouble. But he says, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And so we have hope in Jesus Christ that transcends our circumstances, as hard as they may be, as difficult as they may, that we have this overcomer. He has overcome the world. So we do take heart, even though life is hard. Now, these next 10 words may change your life. I say that because it was the start of the journey in changing mine. I remember when I came across this quote decades ago. Suffering is inevitable. Misery, though, is optional. Misery is a choice. And happiness is a choice. Suffering is inevitable, but how you view that is a decision to make, whether you're gonna be miserable or not, because happiness is always a choice. Abraham Lincoln said, I guess most people are about as happy as they make up their minds to be. And that's just truth. Now, the second enemy of contentment is unwise comparisons. Unwise comparisons. Let's say that out loud together. Unwise comparisons. That'll take out our contentment. In Matthew chapter 20, Jesus told a parable about an owner of a vineyard who went out at dawn, and he hired a group of day laborers from the labor pool to work all day, and he agreed to pay them a denarius, which was the average day's wage for a worker in that day. And then it was around 9 o'clock that the owner of the vineyard realized that he needed some more workers. And this is a parable. This is a story that Jesus, he created. And so So he went out at 9 and he hired another group of laborers, and then needed some more workers. So he went out at noon and he hired some more, and he went out at 3 p.m. and he went to the labor pool, the guys that hadn't been hired all day long, and they're still waiting there, and he hired them just for the end of the day. And so at 5 p.m. he went and he hired for just 1 hour the last group to work. And then it was 6 p.m. It was settle up time to pay everybody for their work for the day. And what the owner of the vineyard did in this story that Jesus told, he paid all the workers the same amount, 1 denarius. Didn't go over well with some of them. When those hired earlier came to get their pay, they assumed they would receive more. I would too. But they too were paid a day's wage. When they received their pay, they protested. Those people, they worked only 1 hour, and yet you paid them just as much as you paid us, who worked all day long in the scorching heat. What gives? That's not in the original, but. He answered one of them, friend, I haven't been unfair. Didn't you agree to work all day for the usual wage? Take it and go. I wanted to pay this last worker the same as you. And here it is, the owner says, don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money? Or are you envious because I'm generous? Unwise comparisons always lead to envy, and envy will take out your contentment like that. We are not discontented because we have so little. We are discontented because someone else has more, and we're comparing. One of the reasons that we're not content is because the entire strategy of marketing and advertising is simply to stimulate discontentment. That's what it does. You feeling pretty good about life? Life's okay. You see a product advertised, now you feel like, my life is miserable. My life is deficient. I don't have that. I didn't even know that existed 5 minutes ago, but now I can't live without that. And happiness, contentment is what? Just one purchase away. They are good. That's why they get paid a lot of money, to stimulate discontentment in your mind and heart and in mine. I don't know if you remember the Sky Mall magazine, back in the day, 10, 20 years ago, you'd travel and there'd be this magazine on the plane, you'd pull it out of that where it tells you what to do, the safety precautions and things like that. And it was pretty fascinating. That in the Sky Mall magazine, you learn about things that you did not know even existed and go, oh my word, Lori, I think I really do need a jetpack. I mean, that thing would be really cool, And if you get a jetpack, then I'm getting a personal robot. So we never did either, but anyway. There are things that you think that you have to have that you didn't even know existed. Theodore Roosevelt wisely said that comparison is the thief of joy. If you're into comparing yourself to other people, it'll rob you. You compare yourself to someone else's spouse, to someone else's house, to someone else's job, to someone else's child, to someone else's everything. And if you're constantly comparing to someone else, then you are going to be a very discontented person, because there's always people that have more. You see, when we compare, we tend to compare up rather than compare down. And I want you to hear me when I say down, compared to someone who has less than we do, someone that might be less fortunate than what we have. Because if we compared ourselves to someone that has less, then the response, the reality ought to be gratitude. God, I thank you. I see what they have and don't have, but I'm thankful for what you've blessed me with. I'm so grateful for that. We typically don't do that. What we do is we compare ourselves to someone that's further down the path, to someone that's at the next level, and we go, I want that. And if I had that, then I would be really happy. And you know what? You wouldn't, because then there's somebody else that's a little further beyond them, because there's always somebody that has more. And we tend to compare up, and it creates envy and discouragement. That's why I'm so happy that we're in this season of the year, not just Thanksgiving, where there's gratitude focus, but also last week we had our mission trip launch meeting. And I've said for years that I hope every person on the planet, every person connected to Community Christian Church would make the decision to follow Jesus as Savior and Lord, to have the hope of heaven. That every follower of Jesus would make the decision to, at least at one point in their life, if they can swing it financially, if they could go on a mission trip. Because when you go on a mission trip, you get to see the world like God sees the world. And you might be able to see a context that I've been to some third world nations where it just rips you apart. And you can't help but be impacted by that in a healthy way. And I was talking to a friend this past week for, I think, about 45 minutes one night. She's asking some questions about going to Nairobi, Kenya, and whether, if I thought it was good. And I go, yeah, because I love Kenya. And I've been, and I got to tell you, I said, your heart is going to be broken when you see the Mathare Valley slum, one of the worst slums on the planet. But you're going to see the joy that exists in the lives of the kids that are there. And you're going to come back the same person, but a very different perspective. And yes, you should go. And I wish that for every single one of you, because when we have that, it changes, and we're not making these just unwise comparisons, because comparison is the thief of joy. We won't just always compare to someone that has more, but we'll look at someone that has less. And here's the thing, when you go to a place like Kenya or one of the other mission trips, you'll see poverty at a level that maybe you've never seen before, but you'll see joy at a level that maybe you've never seen before either. And that's the amazing thing. And you say, I want that joy. That's what I want. Now, when I talk about enemies of contentment, there's no way I can give a message without talking now, these days, about the impact of social media on our contentment. I've read a number of articles, the correlation between social media and depression. It wasn't in my original talk because I did this back in, I think it was July, or it was August, when I did a parenting series, and I talked about a book. And if you're a parent, you weren't here then, you ought to write this down. It's not gonna be on the screen. We don't have it back there. It's a book that you can get on Amazon. It's called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. It's H-A-I-G-H-T. It's a disturbing book, to be honest with you. But there's action steps. But it talks about the correlation between what has happened, the serious decline in the mental health of kids since the invention of the smartphone. And it's all tied not because people have access to email and they can call and text. No, it's because of social media. One study found 3 times the incidence of depression among the most active users of social media. And so many people, after being on social media and doom scrolling, they feel worse than before. Why? The term that is used in our culture among social scientists is called social comparison. It's just envy is what it is. Envy. Social comparison. Here's a quote from one of the articles. Scrolling through the happy status updates, exciting vacation photos, and beautiful family moments led participants to compare their lives with those of their social media friends. Those social comparisons led people to assume the social media friends had better lives. And those feelings of envy increased their chances of developing depression. And it's just true. So friends, here's the thing. Don't compare your everyday life to someone else's highlight reel. What's a highlight reel? Well, again, because I love sports, a highlight reel is the best plays. You have a player that's a wide receiver. I played wide receiver in high school. So you have a wide receiver that catches the one-hand catch, does the toe tap right before he gets out. That's a highlight play. You have that series of all the highlight reels. You don't include that one where the ball is thrown right to the receiver and he just drops it, boom, and it destroys the drive. You don't see the missed block. You don't see all the average plays. You don't see the below average plays. You only see the highlight reel. That's what social media is. It's the highlights of the vacations and the parties and the meals, and we compare. So what do? I read a post by a friend this past week. She didn't say it exactly this way, but this is what she meant. She said, hey, I'm back. I meant to take off a month or so from social media. It turned into 11. Best thing for me. I missed you guys, but I was really to lean into my family during this season. So maybe you do a digital detox for a season and you compare how you feel during that season when you're not in one. Maybe what you do, if there's an individual that just triggers you all the time, but it would be unwise and it would create more drama than you want, You don't unfriend them, but you can unfollow them or just snooze them for 30 days. It's not an unkind thing to do. It's the wise thing to do, especially if you're susceptible to that triggering you. Proverbs 14:30 says, a heart at peace, well, it gives life to the body, but envy, it rots the bones. Mark Twain said, few of us can stand prosperity. Another man's, envy. Unwise comparisons will rob you of your contentment. Leonard Bernstein, who's the famous symphony conductor, was asked one time, what's the toughest instrument to play in the orchestra? He didn't even pause. He said, second fiddle. Envy. Paul did not compare himself to others who were free and feel deprived. He compared himself to Jesus Christ, who was crucified on a cross for him, and he was just honored to suffer in Jesus' name. Another enemy of contentment is unnoticed blessings. Unnoticed blessings. There's a book titled How to Know When You've Got It Made, and many of us, we don't know that we have it made. Again, probably no people in history have ever had more possessions, more freedom, more recreational opportunities, more entertainment possibilities, but we don't notice them because they're just so common. We consider them as necessities, and we take them for granted, unnoticed blessings. If you struggle in this area by not noticing the blessings that you have in life, then this is a visualization tool that you might want to try to do to be able to help you. It's pretty dramatic, to be honest with you, but it works. We know the catastrophic damage in South Florida that can happen from a hurricane. We saw what Hurricane Melissa did to Jamaica and to Cuba and to Haiti, and hence our meal pack. And I'm so glad that so many of you have signed up. And we were trying to get 1,000 people to pack meals on Friday and Saturday. And we have just a few spots left. So way to go, community. The last few years in South Florida, I think it's been since Irma, but have been uneventful in Southeast Florida. Southwest Florida and West Florida, Hurricane Ian and hurricanes others that I don't remember and I didn't research, I can't remember. But anyway, they really hammered the west coast of Florida, but it hasn't happened to us. But let's fast forward, we're really out of hurricane season right now. So next fall, early on, it's pretty calm in July and August, but let's say Labor Day weekend of 2026, there's a catastrophic storm on the horizon. And wouldn't you know, we get lucky that they happen to call this storm Andy. It's kind of like the grandson of Hurricane Andrew. And now this monstrous storm that's so big, and there are wind gusts up to 300 miles an hour. It's a Category 7 hurricane. Is there a Category 7? No, he's making that up. Yeah, I'm making it up because it's a visualization thing. Let's see. This is a massive storm unlike has never been seen on the planet, and it hits Broward County as its epicenter. It is like the bomb of Hiroshima goes off right here, and everything is destroyed. This building's taken out. Your home, house, apartment, condo, wherever you live is taken out. Your car's destroyed. Your family, all lost. You're the sole survivor. Visualize this. What it'd be like to live that way for a day, for 2 days, for a week. What life would be like to lose everything. It's like what happened to Job really did happen to Job in the Old Testament of the Bible. He lost everything. But then in this visualization, then now you wake up and it was the most horrifying yet vivid nightmare that you've ever had. And you look around and you see your family and you go hug them and you're grateful for your car. It's kind of a beater that, it's barely held together, but you're thankful that you have it. You think of all the things that you just disliked and were just discontented about, but now you're grateful for. Why? Because that's exactly where you're at right now. Sometimes we just have to have a paradigm shift of the way we view things. It's not our circumstances, friends, it's our attitude. There's an old hymn, Count Your Blessings. It says, count your many blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. Isn't it interesting that when we finally get what we want, we don't want what we have? It's just not enough. We want more. See, our failure to notice even our blessings leads to complaining. We complain what we have. We complain about what we don't have. The cure is to count your blessings. Choose to count your blessings rather than list your disappointments. If somebody was to ask me, Scott, are you a counter or are you a lister? I would say, yes. But I want to be more of a counter than a lister. So I'd ask you the same question. Are you more of a counter or are you a lister? Let's lean into being a counter. You count your blessings rather than list your disappointments, because when you count your blessings and you choose to be grateful, it is game changing. You see, friends, here's the truth. This might be the biggest takeaway for you in the entire message. Don't miss this. Gratitude turns what we have into enough. It does. It does. Gratitude turns what we have into enough. If you are a grateful person, it turns what you have into enough. Scott, you talk about this all the time. Even if you're talking about something completely unrelated, you talk about gratitude. I know every speaker has what I'll call hobby horses. This is mine because I want to be a grateful person. I want my sons to be grateful. I want my grandkids. I would just want them to be grateful. Why? Not because I want them to be grateful. No, I want them to be grateful in general. Why? Because I know that it's the key to contentment. And ungratefulness, it just fuels misery. It just does. And here's another truth. If I can't be grateful for the good things that I have right now, I'll never be grateful. I'll be grateful when I get that. No, I won't. Because I always want more. I'll be grateful when that happens. No, I won't. I've played that. Always being grateful, always being contented for the next and the next and the next, but never really experiencing that. If you're waiting for something to happen so you can finally be content, mark it down. Contentment will never find you. It's not one purchase away. Contentment is not an item that you can purchase. It's not a place where you can move. It's not a thing that you can possess. It's an attitude. It's an attitude that we must develop. Now, the fourth enemy, and this is really important, is uncontrolled ambitions. Uncontrolled ambitions. Let's say that out loud together. Uncontrolled ambitions. I'm going to quote, I think, what is one of the greatest theologians of our time, Ricky Bobby. and Ricky Bobby said, if you ain't first, you're last. Second place is the first loser. Now, ambition is healthy as long as it is under control. Jesus commended a man who was given 5 talents and he doubled that. And what did Jesus say to him? He said, nah, you should not have done that. You should have dialed it in, should have just chilled. No, Jesus said this. He said, well done, good and faithful servant. Well done. He commended healthy ambition. The Apostle Paul said in Colossians 4:5, make the most of every opportunity. Colossians 3:23, whatever you do, you work at it with all of your heart as working for the Lord, not for men. Philippians 3:13, here's the guy that is in prison, aged. He's got a thorn in the flesh, some physical dynamic that's playing out, never was specified in the Bible. We don't know, but Paul's not doing well. He's awaiting possible execution. And he's the one, I've learned the secret of being content. And his secret of being content was not just dialing it in, having no goals. No, listen to what Paul said, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead. I press on toward the goal. I love this athletic metaphor. Toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. Paul was no slacker. He wanted to change the world. For Jesus, he's the one who said he learned the secret of contentment. But I strain toward what is ahead. James chapter 3, verse 16 says, for wherever there's jealousy and selfish ambition, there you'll find disorder and every kind of evil. When a follower of Jesus has ambition under control, it's not ego-driven. Ken Blanchard said that ego is simply edging God out. Ego. But if you have ambition under control, it's not ego-driven, it's lifting God up. So you use your success as a platform for God's glory. You let your light shine so that people can see your Father in heaven. And because I follow football, college football, and NFL, and frankly, some days I'll watch a high school game. I just love football. It's kind of crazy. But anyway, that's me. But I love the fact that some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL are dedicated followers of Jesus. And they're unapologetic about that. And they know that they have a platform for a short window, for a season. And they know that they're gonna catch flack for it. There's gonna be pushback on it. And yet, they're followers of Jesus. It's God-honoring ambition. Ambition out of control, though, it robs us of our values. We'll sacrifice our family. We'll sacrifice our integrity. We sacrifice sleep. We'll sacrifice our health just to climb another rung of the ladder so that the people around us will think more of us and admire us. Jesus said in Luke 12:15, he says, don't be greedy for what you don't have. Real life is not measured by how much that you own. There is a rich fool. There's a parable that Jesus told in Luke chapter 12, and he was this overly ambitious person, successful, but overly so, distorted, and it was always about what was next, never enjoyed the moment. I know what I'll do next. I know what I'll do next. And he said, I know, I'll tear down my barns and I'll build bigger ones, and then I'll have room enough to store everything. And I'll store so much grain and I'll make so much money for so many years. And then somewhere down the road, I don't know where, but somewhere at some time, I'm not really sure when, then I'm gonna be content. And then I'm gonna say, finally, man, you have arrived. But God said to him, you fool, you will die this very night. Then who will get it all? The problem was the man could never say, wow, this has been a great year. Let's just pause and thank God for his goodness. We want next year to be better, but let's pause and thank God for this year. His ambition blinded him to the blessings that were right in front of him and all around him, and created a spirit of discontentment. And what it did is it fueled workaholism in his life. And that'll never bring about contentment or joy. And there are some of us in this room or some online that's pretty descriptive of us, no matter what we have. Yes, it's never enough. No matter how good today is, we're not focused on today, we're always focused on tomorrow, we're focused on the next hill. No matter how much God has blessed us, we seldom give thanks. We are restless, we're sleepless, we are fidgety. Even in church, we have a hard time concentrating. Why? Because we're laying blueprints in our minds for bigger barns about what's next. The truth is, in my younger days, I struggled with that. I mean, we'd have an accomplishment. Yeah, that's awesome. What's the next hill? What's the next hill? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? That's not altogether bad, because I do it. But when you do it, it is a sin, and God wants you to stop. I just want you to know that, okay? No, it's a little joke. Now let's look back at this passage in Philippians and discover the secret of contentment for the follower of Jesus. Paul said, I've learned to be content, whatever the circumstances now. Again, in prison, broke, physical impairment, thorn in the flesh, alone. I've learned. Didn't come natural to be content. And he's not saying if it's just the right circumstances, if all the stars align, if the environment is perfect, if you're sitting on a beach, it's white sand and you're chilling, and then that's when contentment happened, but never any other time. Paul didn't say any of that. I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. And friends, here's the secret to a contented life. Contentment occurs when we develop a spirit of gratitude regardless of our circumstances, when we are just grateful people, because gratitude turns what we have into enough. And Paul right there, he says it in Philippians chapter 4, verse 4. He says, rejoice in the Lord always. Always means always. It means always, good times and bad, always. Rejoice in the Lord always. I'll say it again, rejoice. And it is attitude, it is perspective. I know this because I've been on both sides of this. So if you want to be content, develop a spirit of gratitude regardless of your circumstances. It's the ability to say, no matter what I have or don't have, I'm gonna choose to be content. No matter what I have to endure, I will not play the victim. No matter what I gain or lose, my health status, my job, my memories from the past, my fears of the future, I'm gonna choose joy. And maybe that you say, Scott, I don't think I can do that. The truth is, you can't. The truth is, I can't either. And the true truth is, Paul, the Apostle Paul, he couldn't do this either. You wanna see the next verse, the whole context of what he says? He said, I can't do that, but I can do all things through Christ because he's the one who gives me the strength. He's the one who gives me the power. It is Jesus who helps me not to make these unwise comparisons. It is Jesus who helps me not to have these unrealistic expectations. It sets me up just to be disillusioned. It is Jesus who turns what I have into enough. I can do all things through Christ because he is the one who gives me strength. And so friends, the two secrets to contentment are gratitude, because gratitude turns what we have into enough. And the second one that I haven't even mentioned today in the last 30 seconds, but it is a key because I've mentioned it the last 2 weeks. Giving is the key to contentment. Why? How? Jesus said, it is more blessed to give than it is to receive. Because when you are a giver, your focus shifts from you to the receiver. And it is more blessed to give because when you give, it's not about you. You're not focusing on you. You're not self-absorbed. You're not self-centered. You're not self-focused. It's about the other person. And so when you do that, when you shift the focus to the receiver, then there's a joy that comes. You are more blessed than ever when you give. So, for those of you who are givers here at Community, and for those of you who are not yet givers here at Community, I hope this video inspires you because your giving changes the world. One life at a time. Check out this video.